have to accept that it's going to be annoying.
No, it's going to be annoying. Okay.
It's not going to end our day.
Ride the party.
It might give us a little bit of a headache.
I am getting a headache. Okay. Ride the party. All right. Okay.
Things like this is kind of one of those go with the flow things, because I'm a very easily annoyed person. I used to have a lot of anger issues myself.
Thank you. I think
I can contribute something with that too. Whenever you're feeling annoyed, you can look to the need that's not being met, that's generating that feeling. And it's
yes.
Usually when you feel annoyed, it has to do with another person, right? And so if you can somehow manage to let go of any shoulds that you're putting on that person,
so
they should be doing this,
right.
They should be not be doing
Motorcycles should not be driving by. Drop that out. You just sorry.
So yeah, right. If you can let go of any shoulds.
Motorcycles are driving by.
Ride the way! Yeah. This gives me something to do. And I can't hear.
Positive motivation in solving the issue. Positive motivation and being able to think of ways that could possibly make the situation better and improve.
Yes.
Creative strategies that might be pose a need.
How do we go deal with it?
Yeah, in a positive
If we
direction.
can't get rid of them, might as well root them on. Because that way we're abusing ourselves. We can pretend that the revs are an encouragement to us.
I think we are getting less like get a jobs when we have our fists up.
I'm
you
sure
know,
we
like,
do.
like 'cause they just assume, oh, all right.
Yeah, okay, we're good. I love that expression.
Well, especially when you're looking straight at them.
Yeah.
Like I've done that to a few of the cops too. Like they sit there, look at them, watch them, and stare over at us, and it's like, you know, they're like, oh shit.
So I'm going to go over. Here's the four components. I'm down in the what the communication model looks like. Down into this section.
Okay. Thank you.
So I wanted to put a just big disclaimer on the top that people should feel free. That I'm gonna talk about four components of this communication model. I'm going to give an example of how to do this. My example is going to sound clunky, and it's going to sound like it's not going to sound like how we normally communicate with other human beings. And the reason for that is I want to show you. I'm going to communicate that way in order to highlight the four components, in order that I can make them very clear, which is important as we're just learning to do this, right? To very clearly see the components and understand how they're working together. But over time, as we get more comfortable, that people should not feel restrained by these things, that you have to communicate in these four ways, in this kind of what's going to sound clunky and mechanical, but as you get more comfortable, to give it its own flourish and to make it sound more natural and human-like.
Adapted to your personality.
Right, adapted to your personality, adapted to normal human speech patterns, as opposed to what I'm about to do. But anyways, so the four components of this, the first component has to do with, they're not being loud, I'm going to try to talk over them. So the first component is called observation. So we want to make just a photographic observation about what's happening around me, right?
That's number one.
Sure, and that's number one, is making that photographic observation about what's happening. That observation is absent of all judgments, it's absent of all comparisons, and things like that. I mean, it's trying to mimic as best as possible what a photograph would capture if you took a picture of the situation. So I'm going to use an example from like a general assembly. If someone's talking at the same time as a speaker's talking, right? If someone's talking about their proposal up at the front of the GA, you're at the back of the GA and someone else is talking. I could choose to interact with that human that's talking and say, hey man, I'm really pissed off that you're interrupting the speaker right now. But what I've just done is I've made an observation mixed in with a judgment. And my judgment was that they're interrupting. Now the other person can immediately snap back with saying, well, I'm not interrupting. Now you and the other person are in a fight over whether the person's interrupting. Now you're both talking while the other person's talking and you're getting nowhere. and you're not, neither of you are really communicating with each other, right? The person that you're confronting is feeling defensive, and they're merely trying to prove that they're not interrupting, and in the end, you're just wanting to get your need to hear met, which you're not getting fulfilled because now you're arguing with someone whether they're interrupting or not. A better way to approach that person would be if I went up to them and said, when you're talking at the same time that someone's on the microphone, I feel, and we'll get into that part, but notice what I just did there. I just took a picture of what's happening. The person can't really disagree with the fact that they were talking at the same time that that other person was talking. They can't, there's nothing to react to there. They know they were doing it, they were participating in that action, and there's not, there's not that red flag word interrupting that they can kind of jump to and get defensive over or react to, right? So we want to get very strict observations about what's really happening, minus what we think's happening, what we judge is happening, what we think should be happening, or what we think should not be happening, or making a comparison or any of those things, right? After we made our observation that the other person is talking at the same time that someone's talking on the microphone, I want to then talk about my feelings. So when I hear, when you're speaking at the same time someone on the microphone is speaking, I feel concerned because my need, and this ties into number 3 of this component, because my need to hear isn't being met. So now I've done a couple of things there. One is I've stuck with judgment-free I statements. I haven't made any judgments about what the other person is doing. I'm just saying, I'm feeling concerned. I've identified my emotions, and then I'm identifying my underlying needs under those emotions. So I have a need to hear what's going on. Or another way of putting that I like is I have a real need for focus that I need to be met, and that I'm just really trying to meet my need to focus on the topic at hand. And it's really hard for me to do that when there's other and great conversations happening around me. And I really want to stay focused on what we're talking about as a group. It's, again, all I've done there is I've talked about what my perception of the event, I've stuck with judgment-free I statements, I've stuck with what my feelings are and what my needs are in the event. I've said, at this point, I've said nothing about the other person except for that observation up at the top that they're talking at the same time as someone else. But basically, I've kept it all within myself, my perception of the events and how it's affecting me, and I haven't talked at all about the other person. Then the 4th and final part of this is, so now I said, when you're talking at the same time that someone on the microphone is talking, I feel concerned because my need to hear isn't being met. So, could you move that? So, and now we're going to get into the requests, and we want to talk about requests rather than demands. So, could you move that conversation, 3 feet to the left? Could maybe, are you having this conversation because you're scared that your point of view isn't going to get heard in this conversation? So, can I help you get on stack so that way you can speak next to the whole group, so that way everyone can hear the concerns that you're expressing to that one other human being? And there's several other examples we might be able to brainstorm of requests we can make, but we can make different requests, right, about how we can now meet not only my needs, but I want to meet that person's needs too. And so I write in here that there are 3 different types of requests. There's a connection request, where and my example is, I'm wondering if you'd be willing to help me understand what's going on for you, right? I want to make a request to understand your perspective. In this situation, it might be when I'm feeling concerned that I can't hear, but why do you feel the need to speak right now? What is it? What's going on for you? What are your perceptions of this? Why are you having this conversation? So I can have a little more clarity about why you're doing that action, right? That would be a connection request. A partnership request would be making a request to work together to fulfill both of our needs. So, okay, that's kind of the example I gave where, well, it seems like when I approach this person, I could say, I'm feeling concerned that I can't hear, but I recognize that maybe you're concerned that you're not going to get heard, your point of view isn't going to get heard. So can we fulfill both of our needs where I can help you get on stack to speak next to the whole group, and then right now I can listen to what that person's saying. So now my need to hear is being met, and then that person's need to be heard is being met. So now I'm making a request that we work together to fulfill all of our needs. Sure.
Okay, if I contributed something?
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that when the approach you're talking about, I have found it to be much more effective when you can frame it in the context of a dilemma that the two of you are on the same side of versus a conflict that you're on opposite sides of. So let's take it away from a conflict and towards a dilemma that we can both work on this together to come up with a strategy.
I like that a lot. I think that's a great way to look at these situations,
And also being able to have mutual
we're on City Hall.
communication on a level where people are on the same page and mutually being heard as well as hearing.
Right.
Being able to listen as well as being able to voice their perspective.
Well, Alex is doing an NVC Teach-In here.
And so then the last one I'm just going to go over is just an action request. And this is kind of the situation where I say, can't you just move your conversation 3 feet over to the left, or can you just wait until that person's done talking? These requests are our last resort requests. They're kind of the last requests we want to go to. You should get her food. Oh, it's fine. I'm not too worried about it.
I'm very sorry.
I'm not too worried about anything that's happening right now. I know that some people are listening, and it's fine.
That's fine. It's mystery phone. I'm listening to what you're saying.
I should also get. There's another beverage. I'd love one too, because my voice is just going raw trying to do all this talk without any water. I should have. That's another thing. I wish. See, okay, here's a great example. I don't have any water. I could get mad at myself and feel kind of shitty and be like, oh, what a dummy. What a dumbass I was for not bringing any water. But rather than having that internal dialogue with myself, in which I blame myself and I put myself down, rather what I want to communicate to myself is, I really wish I had brought water with me to this teach-in. That really would have fulfilled my need for being able to replenish my voice and soothe my vocal cords. But since I didn't, I'm just sad. I'm just sad that I didn't bring that water. And so now I want to make a request of myself. Now, next time, I want to remember that every time I'm doing a teach-in, I bring water. And now I've made a request, a positive request in the future of how I can change my situation that then fulfills my needs in the future, rather than dwelling on some sort of angry, I'm pissed off at myself that I didn't bring water. And it gets out of that internal blaming game that we so often get into with ourselves, and then we're not communicating with ourselves in a healthy growth fashion. So